Hi guys, my name is Maggie, for those of you who don't know me, even though I'm pretty sure most of you guys do. Um, okay, so for my research study, I studied a group called 7 Challenges at Port Health Services, which is a rehabilitation center for adolescents who are struggling with substance abuse. It's a great facility and it is a great program, so I decided to research it a little bit. Some background information on substance abuse within Wilmington is actually we're the top city in the country right now for opioid abuse, which is really sad. And it's estimated that around 11.6% of the city's population has endured opioid abuse at one point within their lives. That's just really upsetting because that's just the stuff that we kind of know about. I'm sure that there is room to increase that number based on things that weren't reported or things that we never saw. So in the specific study, clients residing at Port participated in a rehabilitation intervention called 7 Challenges. The members of the group were studied in regard to their development of coping skills throughout treatment. So I kind of studied if the group was effective in increasing the client's coping skills in relation to remaining in regard to their substance abuse problem. So with my literature review, I kind of talked about different kinds of approaches in developing coping skills across the country. I'm going to just kind of briefly go over here because my video cuts out at 15 and I had to learn that the hard way. So I talked about New Dawn, which is in California. This talks about a physical it kind of dives into like physical exercise and physical health and how that can increase coping skills and kind of helps relieve stress, gains energy, maintains physical health. So it kind of gives you more than just a coping skill, like as an alternative activity. It gives you more than that as well. I talked about The Right Step, which is in Texas. It kind of goes through a Christianity point of view. I talked about how this is a beneficial way for a lot of people, finding comfort in a faith or religion. That can be really powerful. But I also talked about how this isn't really a good representation of a approach that would work for a general population, because not a lot of people find faith in Christianity or religion at all. So talked about that. My third one was Clearpoint Recovery Center. It kind of talked about incorporating real life situations and experiences in with your recovery and kind of creating and developing coping skills that incorporate with your real world typical life experience. And I talked about how this was really a beneficial approach because it kind of decreases the shock after rehab, like returning home and you're not like, oh my gosh, I'm back in all of these same places and have these same triggers that I did before rehab. It kind of eliminates that to an extent. My last one is Destinations in California. This intervention is an approach that talks about involving yourself in walks in nature, yoga, mindfulness, surfing, and it kind of talks about how these are replacement behaviors and replacing your addiction with positive, outdoors things that you enjoy to do. I said this was a great approach just because, you can't really get rid of addiction without replacing it with something. So that is awesome. Down here, I kind of talked about how 7 Challenges, the group that I studied, is beneficial in my point of view because it kind of encompasses all of those things that I just talked about. It is really open to allowing the clients to discuss their personal beliefs and values, but it also lets them create replacement behaviors and incorporate their real life experiences into it. So, really like the group. Intervention description. I'm going to kind of skim through this because I got cut off last video. Okay, so the intervention description, it's a 7-step program, and we kind of motivate the kids to evaluate their lives, consider lifestyle changes, continue on to implement desired change if that's where they see fit. We don't really tell them to do anything. It's kind of on their own, and I think that is really important because it's kind of their own process of recovery, and they kind of get out what they want to put in, which I think is really helpful. We follow, I'm going to skip down to objectives. We follow 7 steps. It's called 7 challenges. There's 7 steps in the program, and here they are right here. We kind of encourage the kids to start one and don't move on to the next one until you have mastered the one before. So I'm going to kind of skim through this really quick. First one, we decided to open up and talk honestly about ourselves and about alcohol and other drugs. Second one is we looked at what we liked about alcohol and other drugs and why we were using them. 3, we looked at our use of alcohol and other drugs to see if it has caused harm or it could cause harm. 4, we look at our responsibility and the responsibility of others for our problems. We thought about where we seemed to be headed, where we wanted to go, and what we wanted to accomplish. We made thoughtful decisions about our lives and about our use of alcohol and other drugs, and we followed through on our decisions about our lives and drug use. If we saw problems, we went back to earlier challenges and mastered them. So that's kind of like where the whole entire program is based off of. And the kids are in control of what stage they're at and where they feel comfortable, which I think is also really important. Okay, so for my graph, I struggled to do this because my computer would not load the actual template, so I kind of just winged my own graph. So for the situation, I talked about how the situation was that clients were receiving services at Port, and they would participate in the 7 challenges intervention in hopes of increasing their coping skills in regard to their substance abuse issue. The inputs for the agency that I was able to see were the 1 hour time that staff was providing to facilitate the group. Port will spend money on a licensed therapist to facilitate the group and be able to kind of facilitate group conversation and relationship. And I said the facility and its equipment will be utilized for the operation of the group. So that's including even simple stuff that people rarely think about, like electricity, chairs, desks, etc. Outputs, I talked about what we do, open up, talk, honestly, look at the use of drugs. You guys can check that column out. It's kind of basically what I just read, the 7 challenges, points that I just read. Who we reach, I talked about the clients at Port, as well as specifically the 7 challenges group members, which don't have to be at Port. Other facilities can utilize the 7 challenges intervention. For outcomes, I just talked about the short term, a change in the realization of a problem, the knowledge surrounding the harms of substance abuse, and the coping skills and motivation to overcome those. Medium, motivated to apply coping skills in a way that prevents substance abuse, taking responsibility for addiction and for sobriety. So kind of taking your healing, your recovery into your own hands and realizing that it is you and using those coping skills to take responsibility. Long term would be utilizing the coping skills to assist in separating from negative influences and maybe surrounding yourself with new ones, and that could be part of a coping skill. And also stop spending money on drug-related things and remain clean. So that is my graph. For my target behaviors, I'm going to kind of skim over this because I feel like I've already explained this to a certain extent. I said that the first target behavior within the study is for all clients of the 7 Challenges program to take an open and honest look at themselves, an open and honest look at their substance abuse and their addiction, and to form healthy coping skills and apply them to their life in realistic ways. I said the second target behavior is for each client to be able to utilize those coping skills to keep them from falling back into old drug abusing behaviors, be able to utilize them in real life situations, be able to utilize them in treatment, utilize them in getting a relationship back with their family, utilize them in a variety of different ways. For the methodology, I stated that the research study was developed through a population of 8 participants. Sample size was qualified through the criteria of you had to be in the facility already, and I stated that it was non-probability because people of the community didn't have an equal opportunity to join in on the group. It was just the participants who were already involved in Port Health Services. The research study, a one-group pre-test, post-test, began by providing the clients with a pre-test to assess their coping skills prior to the 7 challenges intervention, and then after completing the intervention, they were given a post-test to kind of measure the effectiveness of the intervention. Let's see, sorry. Okay, so the research study was measured the increase of coping skills based on the answers to both pre and post test. So I wanted to talk about how measuring the presence of coping skills rather than the effectiveness of coping skills was chosen due to not being able to accurately measure coping skills and their efficiency. This is kind of what I said previously, was coping skills to a certain point I feel are subjective, and it's hard to measure coping skills for a person without relying on self-report, because it's not really a numerical value that you can really see progress in. It's kind of like self-report, and I'll get into that in my limitations, but I just wanted to clarify that I did measure their the presence of coping skills rather than the effectiveness of them. Okay, so for limitations, this is where I went into it, but I just kind of talked about how it's the subjectivity of coping skills with each different participant. Different clients could potentially enter into the intervention at a way different level than somebody else. Somebody could already come in with great coping skills, and somebody could be really against even using coping skills. So it just kind of depends where the clients are. And that another limitation is just the self-report. It's not, like I said, it's not numerical data. It hinders it because we're kind of relying on our clients to be honest, and as much as we want to think that everybody is, sometimes people aren't for like numerous reasons. So those are some of the limitations. Agency costs and benefits. I kind of said that if the outcomes of the intervention was positive, which it was, then the agency could keep implementing the intervention into the treatment plan. And if the intervention was not beneficial to the clients and didn't really show any increase in coping skills, we could maybe as an agency, look into different methods of developing coping skills. Maybe utilize one of the ones that I cited in my literature review, because those were some good ideas as well. Some alternative strategies. I said that if I had something else to dive into, I would potentially dive into the effectiveness of the coping skills and to measure the relapse rate after the intervention, just because I felt like that was more interesting. But I really don't think that I would do much different in the area that I did specifically study. But that is all. Yeah, that is all. Okay, well, hope you guys enjoyed my presentation and research. Everybody have a good day.